Have you ever wondered what happens when the bonds we think will always be strong start to unravel with age? What if the very people we trust the most, our siblings, our children, even our life partners, suddenly become sources of burden instead of support? This video explores the painful but important lessons we can learn from real-life experiences, like the story of Sazan, who gave everything for her family, only to face devastating consequences in her later years. Stick with me until the end, because what you'll learn here is not just about money, family, or aging. It's about understanding the boundaries we must set to protect ourselves as we grow older. You'll discover why we must stop relying on family ties to carry us through life's toughest challenges, and how making the wrong choices can lead to regret that lasts a lifetime. By the end of this video, you'll understand why it's so crucial to maintain financial independence, even from those we love most, and why the elderly must learn to let go of certain responsibilities. Trust me, this is something everyone, no matter your age, should hear, so you don't end up like those who sacrificed everything only to be left with nothing. So, if you want to avoid these heartbreaking mistakes and ensure your golden years are filled with peace, health, and independence, keep watching. You won't want to miss these life-changing insights. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. 1. Lending money to siblings. Even when the bond with your siblings feels strong, it's important to recognize the limits of that connection, especially when it comes to money. Though it may seem counterintuitive, sometimes the best way to preserve family harmony is to treat siblings strictly as relatives, rather than as lifelong companions in every aspect of life. There's a saying that can feel incredibly harsh but rings true in many cases. Once parents are gone, siblings become just relatives. While this sentiment might sting, it's a reality that many of us are reluctant to accept. But if we're being honest, it's the unfortunate truth for many families. While our parents are alive, there is often an unspoken assumption that siblings will look out for each other, help each other financially, emotionally, and in countless other ways. But once the parental glue that holds everyone together is gone, these relationships can sometimes fracture, and what was once an unbreakable bond can begin to feel like a distant obligation. There's no denying it, life changes, and so do the dynamics within families. As time passes and we age, those bonds that once seemed invincible can become strained and complicated. Sibling relationships, once built on shared experiences and mutual dependence, can slowly transform into distant connections, often weakened by misunderstandings, unspoken expectations, and yes, even financial disputes. When we reach our 70s or 80s, we begin to realize how fragile these connections are. Blood ties, once so central to our sense of identity, may now feel more like fleeting memories. Gathering together once or twice a year for holidays or special events may be the only time you even see your siblings. As time goes on, you might even begin to question whether these ties still hold any real meaning. After all, how close can you be to someone when you only see them a handful of times each year? But what makes this even more painful is when you realize that many siblings, perhaps unconsciously, begin to take advantage of that bond. The familiarity of family can lead to a sense of entitlement, especially when it comes to money. Suddenly, lending money or making unreasonable financial requests becomes a regular part of the relationship. For some, it becomes a cycle. One sibling helps another, but then that help becomes expected, and eventually, the financial strain begins to feel suffocating. It's heartbreaking to think that the bond you thought was built on love and trust can be marred by such financial burdens. As we get older, life becomes more difficult, and those challenges are magnified when we're not well prepared. For many elderly people, the reality of old age is one of financial uncertainty, declining health, and isolation. Without careful planning and a solid foundation, many people are left scrambling to make ends meet, often relying on others in ways that were never anticipated. The struggle to maintain financial independence can take a toll on the spirit, leaving many feeling vulnerable. The emotional weight of aging only gets heavier when family relationships that once provided support start to feel like an extra layer of burden. Consider the story of Sazan, whose life serves as a heartbreaking example of how financial entanglements with family can quickly spiral out of control. Sazan was born into a family that expected her to sacrifice her happiness for the well-being of others. Her parents arranged her marriage to a man 10 years older, and the entire arrangement was based on the provision of a 1 million yen deposit, an amount that became the foundation of her life's obligations. But from the very beginning, Sazan's existence was defined not by her dreams or desires, but by what others needed from her. In her marriage, she had no room for herself, constantly dealing with demands from her parents and later, her brother. She gave, and she gave without complaint. From supporting her brother's business to helping him purchase a home and covering the costs of his wedding, she poured everything she had into her family. She became the financial lifeline that held the family together, not once considering that this role might leave her with nothing of her own. As the years went by, Sazan became the de facto bank for her family. Whenever anyone was in need, they would turn to her. And she, in turn, never hesitated to help. Her selflessness was admirable, but it also set a dangerous precedent. She didn't just help, she gave until it hurt, giving without ever considering the toll it might take on her future. But when old age began to creep in, the unspoken consequences of her lifetime of sacrifice started to unfold. Her parents passed away, and her husband, too, left her far too soon, leaving Sazan alone, with only her brother as her remaining family member. She had spent her life taking care of everyone else, and now, in her own time of need, there was only one person left to lean on, her brother. It's deeply tragic, but the reality is that sometimes, the people we love can become our greatest burden. When her brother found himself at odds with his wife and was kicked out of the house at 65, Sazan, feeling an overwhelming sense of duty and compassion, opened her heart and her home to him. She allowed him to move into her old house, sacrificing her 25,000 yen monthly rental income to offer him a roof over his head. At first, she believed this act of kindness would be temporary, that things would settle down. But the problems only deepened. Her brother fell ill and required costly medical treatment. And instead of expressing gratitude, he took her sacrifice for granted. He expected her to care for him, without considering her own well-being. Sazan, already in her later years, was forced to use her own hard-earned retirement savings to cover his medical expenses. It was a devastating situation. Not only did this create tension between Sazan and her children, who were deeply concerned about the impact on her savings, but it also highlighted just how one-sided the sacrifices had become. Despite all her efforts, Sazan couldn't save her brother, and when he passed away, she was left with nothing but the emotional and financial fallout of her choices. The debt she had incurred on his behalf was never repaid, and her children refused to acknowledge it. Years of carefully saved retirement funds, which should have been hers to enjoy in her later years, were depleted to try and fix someone else's life. Sazan's story is a painful reminder of the truth that no matter how deep the blood ties run, adulthood requires us to stand on our own 2 feet. Everyone has their own families, their responsibilities, and their own needs. As adults, we can no longer rely on familial connections to secure our future. We must be financially independent, no matter how close we may feel to our siblings or other relatives. The cold, hard truth is that family relationships can't survive if they're based on constant financial dependency and unreciprocated sacrifices. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. It's a tough pill to swallow, but the message is clear. Even in the closest sibling relationships, boundaries are essential. Money should never come between people who are supposed to be family. Clear financial boundaries ensure that relationships remain pure and natural, without the strain of unmet expectations and unacknowledged debts. Helping family members is an honorable thing to do, but it must be done with careful thought and consideration. If you do not have the financial means to help, Or if helping comes at the cost of your future security, then it's time to step back. We must never allow our kindness to become a burden, and we should never feel obligated to give until there is nothing left for ourselves. As we age, it's essential to remember that we are deserving of love, care, and protection too. Helping others is beautiful, but it should never be at the expense of our well-being. It's crucial to protect our future and to ensure that our later years are filled with peace, not with the weight of past sacrifices. Only then can we truly enjoy the rest of our lives, free from the heavy burden of financial obligations to others. 2. Couples should not attend each other's funerals but keep their hearts peaceful. As the years accumulate, something deeply transformative begins to unfold. By the time we reach our 80s, we inevitably start to grapple with the concept of loss. Not just the passing of friends and loved ones, but also the confronting reality that our time here on earth is finite. We begin to see death not as a distant shadow, but as a presence in our lives, reminding us that it could come at any moment. The thought of our mortality, as uncomfortable as it may be, starts to occupy a larger space in our minds. It is not just the loss of others that weighs heavily, but the knowledge that we too, like everyone before us, will eventually fade away. For many elderly people, this realization brings with it a bittersweet awareness. As we grow older, the world around us shrinks. Once vibrant social circles gradually dwindle as the inevitable passage of time takes its toll. Friends we once laughed with, confided in, and shared experiences with begin to disappear. Phone calls become increasingly less frequent, and messages left unanswered become all too common. We dial the phone number, hoping to hear that familiar voice on the other end, but the line remains silent, and it's only then, often far too late, that we learn that those we loved have passed on, leaving us behind in the quiet aftermath of their absence. This stage in life is a deeply emotional and often lonely one. Our parents, once strong and nurturing, are no longer here to offer their wisdom or provide the comfort of their presence. Our siblings, once our closest companions in this journey of life, are often scattered across distant places, and family reunions become rare, fleeting events. We hold on to the memories of shared holidays, of phone calls that served as brief but significant check-ins, and these small, seemingly inconsequential gestures become treasures in our hearts. As time wears on, we realize that the people who once surrounded us have slowly drifted away, leaving us with only echoes of the past. When we think of a life partner, they represent the last living connection to the person we once were. This person has witnessed every chapter of our lives, the joys, the triumphs, and the inevitable heartaches. They've been there when we celebrated, and they've been there when we grieved. It is easy to imagine that, in our old age, our children will be the ones to step in and take over, tending to us the way we once took care of them. But this expectation, though natural, is not always fulfilled. By the time parents reach their 80s, their children are often deep in the throes of their own lives. They are raising their own families, managing careers, and navigating the overwhelming responsibilities that come with adulthood. Even those children who live nearby are often stretched thin, balancing their obligations, and rarely able to visit as often as they would like. The physical distance between families increases as time passes, and what was once a frequent visit becomes a rare occurrence. This gap between the elderly and their children grows wider, and with it comes an undeniable sense of loneliness. The elderly are left to face the reality of their isolation, a feeling that is compounded by the realization that their children are often too busy to be present in the ways they once were. And even if a child is physically present, they may not always be emotionally available, their attention divided between their own families, careers, and commitments. The truth is that by the time we reach our 80s, the departure of loved ones becomes a foregone conclusion. The death of friends, the passing of siblings, and even the gradual loss of our children are something we must prepare for emotionally. And even in the strongest of marriages, this inevitable truth remains. One spouse will eventually pass away, and the other will be left behind. The thought of losing someone who has been your closest companion for decades, who has shared every significant moment of your life, is incomprehensible. The weight of this loss is impossible to fully prepare for. The emptiness that comes with the death of a spouse is immense, and it's not something that can be filled easily. But we must face the harsh truth. Death is a part of life. No matter how strong our bond with our spouse is, eventually, one will have to say goodbye. It is a reality we cannot escape, no matter how much we may wish otherwise. Grief, though natural and essential, must not consume us entirely. Life goes on, and if we allow ourselves to be trapped in sorrow, we risk losing the beauty that remains in the life we still have. It's easy to become submerged in grief. It's tempting to retreat into the past and hold on to the memories of better times. But we must remember, the ones we've lost are gone, and they will never return. Clinging to the past will only prevent us from embracing the future. The living must continue to live, even when it feels like the world has come to a halt. Grief is a necessary process, but it must not define us. It must not steal our strength, our health, or our will to continue. If we let ourselves become overwhelmed by grief, we risk more than just emotional pain. Our health will suffer, our spirits will weaken, and our quality of life will deteriorate. It is heartbreaking, but many elderly individuals, unable to cope with the crushing weight of their grief, lose their mental and emotional balance. Some, in their despair, tragically take their own lives, causing untold pain and anguish not only for themselves but for their children and loved ones who are left behind. This type of loss brings even more sorrow and is something that should be avoided at all costs. This is why it is so important for the elderly to find ways to heal and move forward after experiencing loss. The passing of a spouse, a friend, or a loved one is a painful, unavoidable reality, but it is not the end of the road. Life is a journey, and it continues even in the face of loss. The key to surviving and thriving in old age is learning to let go and allow yourself to find peace. By accepting the natural order of life, we help ease the burden on our children and allow them to live their own lives without the heavy worry of our suffering. When we show our children that we can maintain joy, preserve our health, and accept the changes that come with aging, we provide them with a gift of peace and reassurance. This, in turn, allows them to focus on their own families and responsibilities with greater ease, knowing that their parents are doing well. As difficult as it may be, we must acknowledge that, at some point, we must let go of our old ways of grieving. We cannot spend the remainder of our days in mourning, constantly looking back. Even the deepest marital bond cannot prevent the inevitable. The elderly need to recognize that the role of visiting the gravesite of a deceased spouse or loved one can be taken on by the children or other family members. Our health may not be able to bear the strain of long trips, and the emotional toll of revisiting painful memories can be overwhelming. Instead of forcing ourselves to fulfill this role, it is a profound act of love to allow our children to honor the deceased, giving them the space to express their grief in their way. In the end, life is not inherently prepared for these moments, and there is no manual for dealing with the heartache that comes with loss. But one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves and our loved ones is the ability to let go and move forward. This act of acceptance is the most profound gift the elderly can offer their families, a gift that ensures they will be remembered not for their mourning, but for their strength and resilience in the face of life's most difficult trials. 3. Homes are the foundation of later life and should not be passed to children or grandchildren. As we journey through life, the meaning of home deepens significantly, particularly as we enter our later years. The home becomes far more than just a physical space. It transforms into a sanctuary, a place of refuge, and a symbol of our hard-earned independence. There's an old saying that owning a home is more precious than a nest full of gold or silver, and I cannot stress enough how true this sentiment is, especially after the age of 70. By this time, whether your home is humble or grand, the greatest thing you can do for yourself is to hold on to it. A home is not simply four walls and a roof. It's a personal haven filled with memories, love, and the essence of who you are. It's a place where you have weathered storms, celebrated joys, and built your story. So, to relinquish it for the hope of future care often brings unforeseen heartbreak, regret, and feelings of abandonment. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. There's a profound perspective shared by author Makura that resonates deeply with me. Makura once said that people with overly generous personalities often mature more slowly and need to endure numerous hardships before they understand the true essence of life. It's as though, despite the struggles, these individuals maintain their purity, sincerity, and kindness, always seeking empathy and understanding from others. However, this quest for connection can leave them isolated in the end, as the very people they seek to nurture may not always reciprocate their care. The sad irony is that many elderly individuals, with the best intentions in mind, decide to transfer ownership of their homes to their children or grandchildren, believing that this gesture will ensure that they are cared for in their old age. Unfortunately, the reality often proves otherwise. Once the house is transferred, the expectations that the children or grandchildren will step up to provide care are rarely met. Even grandchildren who have no claim to the property may grow resentful and refuse to take responsibility for the well-being of their elderly relatives. Let's take a deeper look at the story of Miyazaki-san, which truly illustrates this heartbreaking reality. When Miyazaki-san reached the age of 70, life handed him a devastating blow. He lost his only son to illness. Overcome with grief and insecurity about his future, he made what he thought was a wise decision. He transferred ownership of his beloved home to his son, trusting that it would guarantee his care in his later years. At the time, he was receiving a modest pension of 240,000 yen per month, which seemed like a sufficient amount to cover his daily needs as long as his health remained stable. Little did he know, this decision would set him on a path of sorrow and abandonment. Just 3 short years after transferring the home, his son made a heartless move. He sold the house. The promises of providing care lasted only 4 months before they were abandoned. Miyazaki-san, who had envisioned his twilight years in the comfort of his own home, was left with nothing but broken promises and a deep sense of betrayal. With no property to his name, he was forced to rely on his meager pension to rent a place. As his health continued to decline, the situation became even more dire. He was unable to care for himself and eventually had to move to a nursing home. Tragically, his family did not come to his aid. His grandchildren, who had no legal claim to the property, chose to distance themselves, leaving him entirely alone. When his situation became too difficult to bear, he faced the unimaginable reality of being expelled from the nursing home. The future he had once imagined, filled with care, comfort, and the love of his family, was replaced by loneliness, anxiety, and helplessness. This painful example underscores the critical importance of thoughtful and long-term planning as we grow older. Reaching the age of 70 should not be a time to sit back and passively hope that others will take care of us. It should be a time to seize control of our future. Our lives, our homes, and our finances must be carefully considered and secured. As we age, it becomes more and more crucial to ensure that we will not be in a position where we are forced to work endlessly just to survive. The key to a peaceful and secure old age is having the foresight to plan for the future and to rely on ourselves for the protection of our most vital assets: our health, our money, and our home. It's important to face the reality that, despite our hopes, our children or grandchildren may not always be able or willing to care for us when we need them most. That's why maintaining control over your home and finances is so crucial. With money, even if you don't have family around, you can still make choices that ensure comfort and security, whether by moving to a nursing home or hiring a caregiver to assist with daily needs. Furthermore, if there are relatives who genuinely want to care for you, it's only fair to offer them financial support as a token of your appreciation for their kindness. However, the true strength lies in being able to trust in yourself. If you keep your home and finances intact, no one can take that away from you. A home provides stability, peace of mind, and the freedom to live without the constant fear of being evicted or displaced. It's your sanctuary, your greatest trump card. The most graceful people in old age are those who take pride in their independence. They maintain their health, their property, and their dignity. They make the difficult, yet empowering, decisions to ensure that their later years are filled with peace, comfort, and self-reliance. These individuals, who have worked hard all their lives to build something they can call their own, are the true winners. They are the ones who, as they grow older, continue to live life on their terms, secure in the knowledge that they have planned and secured their future. A home is more than a physical structure. It is a foundation that supports the soul. It is a reflection of your life's work, your values, and your legacy. When you can live in a space that you own, you can enjoy the sweet freedom of knowing that no one can evict you, no one can take your peace away, and you are free to live out your days in dignity. The ability to age gracefully, maintaining your health and independence, is the true measure of success in life. It's not about wealth or material possessions. It's about peace, contentment, and knowing that you took the necessary steps to ensure that your last years are filled with joy, security, and the comfort of your own home. It is essential to understand that while kindness is a virtue, it should never be exploited by others. We must learn to protect ourselves and our resources, to ensure that our generosity doesn't lead to the loss of our dignity or our future. Trusting others is important, but it's equally important not to blindly trust to the point where we give away everything: our assets, our sense of security, and even our self-worth. As we grow older, we find that old age may not always be as kind to us as we hope, but with the right mindset and proper preparation, it can transform into a time of peace, reflection, and fulfillment. I firmly believe that the elderly deserve nothing less than good health, a secure place to live, and the peace of mind that comes from knowing they are safe, loved, and well cared for. It's a simple yet profound wish that every older person in the world should have: the ability to live their later years with dignity and independence, free from the burden of relying on others or enduring their indifference. We must take control of our lives as much as we can to avoid falling victim to those who may not treat us with the respect we deserve. It's critical not to let our old age be defined by others but by our terms, so we don't end up disappointed and disillusioned. When I think about old age, one thought comes to mind: hold on tightly to what you have, your money, your home, your life. These are the foundations that allow for a peaceful, fulfilling, and secure old age. Too often, we overlook the value of what we possess until it's too late. We get so caught up in what we want to achieve or what others think we should have that we forget to protect the very things that matter most. It's so easy to make mistakes when we aren't fully aware of the implications of our decisions. But I've seen, time and again, how small missteps can lead to lifelong regrets. If you value what you have, you'll find that the peace of mind it brings is invaluable. When the inevitable moment of old age arrives, your most loyal companions will be your independence and spontaneity. These are the treasures that will allow you to live freely and happily, regardless of the challenges that come with age. Live consciously, embrace each moment, and love yourself. Life has so much to offer, and while we may not have as much time as we once did, the remaining days can still be filled with joy, love, and tranquility if we choose to live them with intention. We all know that time is precious, and we should never squander it. We must allow ourselves the grace to enjoy the simple pleasures, cherish our relationships, and, above all, never stop growing. I'll never forget a colleague I once had the privilege of working with for over a decade. He was the kind of person who understood life on a deeper level, someone who wasn't easily rattled by the chaos around him. He never feared death, nor did he chase after the typical dreams most people strive for. He was content with simplicity. I remember, even after all these years, how his calm demeanor and gentle nature stayed with me. He had married 4 years before I did, and though his health was never perfect, he and his wife lived a peaceful life. They didn't have children, but they didn't need them to fill the space with joy. They found contentment in their shared routines, taking walks together, dining out, and occasionally traveling to nearby destinations. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Then, life threw a cruel curveball. At 49, his wife was diagnosed with cancer. The illness was swift and unforgiving, and despite all efforts, she passed away. That's when my friend made a decision that shocked many of us. He left his job, a demanding position that involved intricate tasks, and devoted himself entirely to caring for his wife during her final months. I'll never forget the way he spoke about her in those last days. His words were full of love and pain, but also a deep sense of duty. After she passed away, I think everyone assumed he would return to his old life, resume his career, and maybe even find someone new. But he didn't. He chose a completely different path, one of solitude. Years passed, but my friend didn't change. 7 years after his wife's death, he was still living alone, not working, and not seeking out companionship. He had given up so much, but more than that, he had withdrawn from the world around him. It was as if the loss of his wife had created an irreversible shift in him. His house, once a lively home filled with memories, stood in the heart of the city, a valuable property in a prime location. Yet, after his wife passed, he sold it for far less than it was worth and moved to a small, humble apartment in the countryside. I remember how strange it felt. He had always been someone who thrived in the city, someone who was involved in everything, and now he was retreating into the solitude of the countryside. His life became quieter with each passing day. He didn't go out much, didn't engage in social events, and seemed to show no interest in connecting with others. I remember thinking at the time that this was his way of coping with the immense loss he had endured. He needed time, I reasoned. Time to heal. But 3 years ago, when I decided to return to our hometown with my wife, I ran into him again. The change was stark. He was almost like a shadow of the man I once knew, and he seemed distant, disconnected from everyone. Even when I suggested introducing him to new people, he politely declined, explaining that he was content with his quiet life. It saddened me to see how much he had withdrawn from life. When I invited him to go out or travel, he just didn't seem interested anymore. His life had become remarkably routine. He ate simple meals. Breakfast was usually a meat bun or bread, lunch was vegetables and soup, and dinner often consisted of noodles or dumplings. I asked him if he didn't find this monotonous and if he wasn't bored of such a repetitive life, and he laughed. "I can never be bored," he said. "I have books, flowers, and pets." At that moment, I couldn't help but feel a deep ache for him. Yes, he had his books and his quiet life, but was this all there was for him? Was this the life he wanted to live, surrounded only by solitude and routine? I warned him, half-jokingly, that such a life, so solitary and structured, might not be healthy in the long run. I told him that perhaps he was living too stoically, too detached from the world around him, and that it might eventually take its toll on his health. He smiled and assured me that he was fine, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. It wasn't just his solitude that concerned me. It was the loss of his spark, the absence of his engagement with life. Wasn't there more to life than this? His story, though, is a reminder to us all. While solitude can offer peace, it can also make us wither. We need balance. Independence is essential, but so is connection. We need to find a way to embrace life, its ups, its downs, and everything in between, while we still have the time. There's a beautiful world out there, even in old age, if we just open ourselves up to it. My friend's journey, though quiet and withdrawn, serves as a warning. Let us not fall into a life of such isolation that we forget the joy and meaning that can be found in connection, whether with others, nature, or even the simple joys of life. As we reflect on the story shared today, it's clear that life's journey can be unpredictable and challenging, especially as we age. But in the face of those challenges, we must always remember to protect our independence, cherish what we have, and never lose sight of the connections that truly matter. Whether it's learning to appreciate what you have, being careful with whom you trust, or understanding the importance of living consciously, every lesson carries profound weight as we navigate our later years. So, what have you learned so far from this story? I'd love to hear from you. What's one thing you've learned today that you will bring into your own life? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to leave your comment. Hit that like button, share with others who could benefit from these insights, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and remember, The best years are the ones we create for ourselves.